Let's go over 5 keys to consistent sports graphic templates. So this video is going to be less of a technical tutorial and more of an insight into my thought process behind creating graphic templates and kind of what goes into them, what elements I like to use, where I get those ideas from, and then just making sure we create consistency from graphic to graphic. So the first key is to identify the design elements that you want to use across your graphics. Now these can vary team to team, of course. We're going to use the Minnesota wind chill as an example. And my process for finding design elements to use are looking at the logo and the jersey designs, at least when it comes to sports graphics. I feel like that is really the best way to start. As far as logos go, you have tons of different shapes within every logo. Maybe not tons, but a wide variety of options you can go through. So we have like this angled M in this example. Maybe you take that same angle, make it a block going across the canvas. You've got the 3 stripes on top, that can be used as a design element, as well as the star in the middle. I think stars are pretty common across sports. So in this example template I put together, I specifically looked at this kind of cross section between the blue and the black. And you can see it kind of creates this black and blue line if we were just to like section off that part of the logo. So just to show you what I'm talking about, I'm just gonna quickly cut out that edge. We'll mask it there, and maybe we don't want this corner either. And you're left with this shape that can be used as an underline, can be used as like a relatively versatile dividing element. Like if you had a photo up top and information down below, you could mess with this line and kind of figure out how you want to use it. If I ever find a shape within a logo that I do like to recreate that shape, usually with a rectangle tool or pen tool, depending on what the shape is. So if we just undo what I just did and actually draw this out, what I would do here is drag a rectangle tool, kind of over this first part. And then if you hit A for your direct selection tool, you can take this corner, move it up. We'll turn that into a regular path and something around there. We can change this one to the Minnesota blue, and then we'll duplicate this layer. And I'm gonna flip it, edit, transform, flip vertical, and we also wanna flip it horizontal. And now we're gonna line it up with the black part, and I'm just gonna take my, again, direct selection tool, drag these points down, and then clicking on this point alone, kind of fit it to that black shape, and we can change this one to black. So now when we hide the logo, we are left with just these 2 shapes together. And you could play with it a little bit from here. I think it's most important to keep the same angles that we find in the logo. But if you wanted to like stretch this out over the width of a canvas, you can just highlight those edges, again with the direct selection tool. And same thing with the other side. So you can do some fun things, shrink it down, blow it up, but that was kind of the starting point I used for this set of templates. Other things you might look at, I mentioned the shapes in the logo, but jersey texture and jersey elements, those are gonna be super useful. You even see just these black and dark gray stripes. That could easily serve as like a background that you use in your graphics. We've also got this really nice tree texture that I love on the wind chill away jerseys. If you can, see if the team you're working for has those assets that can be pulled separately, or if you're the jersey designer, feel free to drag those assets into your templates as well. So we've got this like tree texture that can really nicely serve as like a kind of a bottom border to any canvas. If we were just to like turn things off, you can kind of visualize what it'd look like with kind of a title at the top, maybe a player cutout. Using these trees across templates would be super easy to do. But anyway, back to this idea of the line that we took from the logo. I took it, you can see in the score graphic, I basically shrank it down a bunch and then stretched out just the ends. And I'm using it as just like a blue and black divider on a score graphic. You can see in this roster graphic, it's situated nicely under the game day roster title and just dividing up the information from title to the body text. And then in the game day graphic as well, same thing, just a nice dividing line. There's so many different ways to make a line, and you might need that in your graphics depending on how you're presenting information. So it's nice to have like a versatile element like this that can take the place of just a standard line and make it a little bit more interesting. And you can see on this game day graphic, I also took that same line, put it on the bottom and the top, just as kind of like a subtle border to frame the whole design. Again, kind of a stretched out, smaller version. So the next key to consistent templates, you might have noticed by now, it is fonts and colors. Please keep your fonts and colors consistent. This font I'm using in this set of templates is called Eurostyle. Now it's nice to have a font that has a few different shapes and variations. Like this game day text is Eurostyle extended black. The text down below with the game information is just normal Eurostyle. There's also a condensed Eurostyle. It has different font weights. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too much by picking a font that just has like one weight and one width. I mean, typically if you're designing for a team or a league, chances are they have specific fonts that they want you to use in full font families, so hopefully there's some good versatility there. But if you're picking your own fonts, I would encourage you to find a font family that gives you more than just one basic size and weight. So you can see Eurostyle in this example, as well as the roster graphic. And I'm also similarly using like kind of a spaced out version of it for these roster names. I've got 100-point spacing between the letters. You can see on the game day text, I'm using that same type of spacing down here. Actually, that went up to 120. But moving on to the score graphic, again, Eurostyle is the font I'm using for these big, bold numbers. This text up here, again, should be that 100 spaced text. Probably similar font sizes too, although you can have a little bit more variety with those. Colors, you've noticed we're going with the team colors. Minnesota has a blue, a black, and of course a white or a light gray. So just making sure we're staying within the same color scheme. You're not going to see any like splash of red or yellow or gold. Want to keep these relatively consistent. You can change up the background colors, so that is the next key to consistent graphics, is just consistent backgrounds. There is room for that within a set of graphic templates. In this example, you're seeing me use the same white, light gray background for pretty much all of these, minus the score graphic, which has a big photo taking up a chunk of it. But this idea of background color, if you're staying within the brand guidelines and keeping your colors relatively consistent, you can get a little bit creative. Now keep in mind, it might be a little jarring if you have mostly this white, gray type of graphic, and then all of a sudden you go complete opposite and go like super dark background, kind of black with blue highlights for the wind chill. That's something I might not necessarily recommend if it's in your regular routine of graphics that you're churning out. But I think going from like a light gray to maybe this blue color would be okay. The easiest way for me to change background colors is just using a gradient map. So once you have your background set up, which I'm gonna package here, call this group background, just drop a gradient map over it with your adjustment layers, and we'll clip this to our background, and then we'll make this go from, let's just say white to, let's eyedropper this blue, and we'll switch these up. And you can just kind of adjust these dials as you like. I mean, I kind of like this, honestly, as a subtle change to the background where you're keeping the primary white or light gray, but you're also introducing some of this blue. But you could go more in the blue direction while still maintaining a lighter feel. I think if we just drag this point to the right, see we're getting a little bit more of this frost texture, which I'll go over soon, and still kind of maintaining a similar vibe as these other graphics. Like this one doesn't feel out of place. It still feels on brand and consistent with the other templates. Now you'll also see with my backgrounds, I'm using the same kind of frost snowy texture for wind chill, but I am changing it up slightly. Like in this graphic, you've got like most of the gray area on the top right and bottom right. For my roster graphic, I rotated it so it's mostly hugging the top of the design. I think for the score graphic, I also rotated it. We're just changing the background in a very subtle way so you get some variety without going too overboard and compromising the overall branding. The next key is to keep your photo styles and filters the same throughout all your graphics. So right now you can see the cutout, the treatment of this cutout, it looks the same in all these spots. Same with the treatment of this photo. Now this is due to the filter that I'm using. If I took the filter off, you could see what it looks like without any effects. But keeping this filter on and using the same treatment for all these different graphics, that's gonna be key to making things seem like they belong together and really are a part of the branding. So for this example, I've gone with a full color look. Maybe you have a black and white theme that you're going with, so you wanna do only black and white filters over your photos or black and white filters over your cutouts. Maybe you do like a black and white skin tone effect, but if you do that, I would recommend doing that across all your graphics and not just doing it for select cutouts. Same thing with popping out certain colors on the jersey. Like if you really want to saturate this blue, just try to make sure it's that same blue from graphic to graphic, photo to photo. And that might mean actually changing up your filters slightly. Now, the fifth key to consistent templates is textures, overlays, finishing effects. Now, I touched on textures a little bit with the background, but as far as finishing effects go, this is also getting into the photo filter. So right now, these finishing effects, you can see how it looks without any finishing effects. So I've got these different layers that are doing different things. I've got a color lookup that I custom made. You can watch my video on custom LUTs if you want to learn how I did that. Subtle gradient map going over the top of everything. Nothing too extreme, but when everything comes together, it is kind of giving this very specific look to all the graphics. So I literally just copy and paste this finishing folder to all the different graphics in this template. And it helps give it the same kind of blue, cooler wash. So making sure your finishing effects are consistent from graphic to graphic, that is a really key way to make it feel like all your graphics belong in the same package. One last design element that I haven't mentioned but wanted to call out, this black rectangle in the top corner with the logo in it. You can see I use that same exact black rectangle with logo in all of the designs. And this might change location depending on what kind of size canvas you're designing for and what the overall layout is. But I think corners and maybe logos in those corners specifically, trying to keep that consistent as well. Maybe that falls into our elements category. Now, a little bonus tip for you is when you're creating these templates from scratch, make choices that make sense. So again, this is the Minnesota Wind Chill. It kind of has a natural coolness in the name with wind and chill, so you start thinking blue. Blue is also one of their primary colors, but there's also like a cleanness to their logo. It's very geometric. So you kind of want to think of these words that you would use to describe the brand before you're going to dive into your template and just go for a certain vibe. Like, are you wanting to go for a sleek, clean vibe? Do you want to go with a more like dark, grungy look? Is your team the good guys or the bad guys? Are you fun or are you serious? So it's things like this that can really help shape the decisions that you make. And this might change subtly year to year, but generally speaking, a brand is going to have a certain vibe that you want to make sure your templates capture. I know this video is a little different than usual, but thank you for watching. Thanks for bearing with me. Hopefully this was helpful. This was the best way I thought to explain this topic without spending like an hour plus building these templates and explaining the whole process while I do it. So appreciate you watching as always, and let me know if you have any questions.